talk about the first round. Um, I love guys that come to me. I like uppercuts because all the power out. I started boxing at the age of 22, 24, 20.
He was strong enough to survive Earnie Shavers. When the hardest puncher in boxing history talks about his toughest opponents, he's not measuring skill or speed, he's measuring survival. 3 men took his legendary right hand and refused to fall. 3 men walked through fire and somehow kept standing. How do you survive the hardest puncher who ever lived? Let's find out. Earnie Shavers never held the world heavyweight title, but he earned something more valuable, the respect of giants. His right hand was described as a force of nature, capable of ending fights in a single instant. When fighters who faced George Foreman, Mike Tyson, and Joe Frazier consistently ranked Shavers as the pinnacle of punching power, his word carried weight. So when Shavers named his toughest opponents, he wasn't just sharing opinions. He was testifying to survival against an existential threat. The men who topped his list shared one quality: they refused to quit. Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, and Ron Lyle each brought different weapons to the ring, but they all left with the same badge of honor. They survived Earnie Shavers. Understanding what made Shavers so dangerous requires examining his philosophy on power itself. Unlike most heavyweights of his era who embraced modern training methods, Shavers famously eschewed weightlifting. He claimed that lifting weights made fighters muscle-bound and tense, robbing them of the relaxation needed for maximum impact. Instead, he attributed his devastating power to chopping wood and lifting bales of hay during his youth in Alabama and Ohio. This natural farmer strength meant Shavers maintained his power late into fights, even when fatigued. His punches didn't depend on hyper-oxygenated muscle tissue, but on biomechanical efficiency and leverage. Randall Tex Cobb, a man known for possessing a chin of granite, described being hit by Shavers as a psychedelic experience. He said he was seeing pink rats and cats and animals smoking cigarettes, lost in the land of make-believe. Cobb even noted that Shavers hit so hard, you felt it in your ankles, suggesting a transference of kinetic energy that vibrated through the entire skeletal structure. This wasn't hyperbole. This was the reality Ali, Holmes, and Lyle faced every second they stood across from him. The mythology surrounding Shavers extended beyond his victims. His record of 23 first-round knockouts spoke to the suddenness of his violence. Opponents entered the ring knowing that one mistake, one dropped hand, one moment of lost concentration could end their night instantly. This psychological warfare began long before the opening bell. Fighters had to conquer their fear of Shavers before they could even attempt to conquer the man himself. If you're enjoying this deep dive into boxing history, make sure you're subscribed. We're breaking down the stories that define the sport's greatest era. Muhammad Ali was 35 years old when he stepped into Madison Square Garden to face Shavers on September 29, 1977. The dancing master of the 1960s was gone, replaced by a flat-footed veteran who relied on an iron constitution and rope-a-dope tactics. Ali's ringside physician, Ferdy Pacheco, warned about neurological danger and eventually left the camp over ethical concerns, specifically citing the Shavers fight as a turning point. Ali dubbed Shavers the Acorn due to his shaved head, a psychological tactic designed to diminish the monster. But beneath the bravado, Ali knew the danger. He trained seriously, weighing in at 225 pounds, knowing mass would be required to absorb the impact. Shavers was 33, a terrifying puncher with stamina problems. Everyone knew the script. Ali had to survive the early onslaught and drag Shavers into deep waters. From the opening bell, Shavers' power was evident. In the second round, he landed a booming overhand right that buckled Ali's legs. The crowd gasped. The sound of the punch echoed through the upper tiers. This was the moment toughness was tested. A lesser fighter would have crumbled. Instead, Ali feigned being more hurt than he was, clowned to buy time, and refused to give Shavers the satisfaction of seeing him wobble. Shavers later admitted he knew he had hurt Ali deeply, but Ali was a great actor. As the fight progressed into the middle rounds, Ali used his experience to tie Shavers up, leaning on him to drain the challenger's energy reserves. Shavers paced himself better than expected, landing thudding body shots that Ali absorbed on his arms and ribs. Every impact took a toll on Ali's internal organs. The rope-a-dope strategy was less effective because Shavers' punches weren't just tiring to throw, they were damaging to block. The championship rounds defined Ali as one of Shavers' toughest opponents. By the 13th and 14th rounds, both men were exhausted. Ali was ahead on the scorecards, but Shavers surged, rocking Ali with massive shots that left the champion stumbling. The 14th round saw Ali on shaky legs, surviving on pure instinct as Shavers battered him around the ring. Then came the 15th round. After Shavers landed another flush right hand that would have felled a tree, Ali did the impossible. He not only stayed standing, but launched a furious counteroffensive. He drew upon a reserve of energy that seemed supernatural, battering an exhausted Shavers with combinations in the final 30 seconds. Shavers, teetering on the brink of being knocked out himself, was saved by the bell. Shavers later recalled the round as unbelievable, stating that Ali came back so strong, he fought like it was the first round. The decision was unanimous for Ali, scored 9-6, 9-6, and 9-5. Controversy surrounded the scoring. None of the judges scored the 9th round for Shavers despite him landing 13 punches to Ali's 4 with higher power. Many ringside observers felt the damage inflicted should have weighed more heavily. For Shavers, this was a tough loss, not just physically, but professionally. It was the closest he would ever get to the undisputed crown. Ali famously stated after the fight that Shavers hit him so hard, he shook his kinfolk back in Africa. Shavers pointed to Ali's intelligence and chin as the differentiating factors. He noted that Ali took everything he had and came back. The toughness here was resilience. Ali proved the human body could withstand forces that physics suggested it shouldn't, provided the mind was strong enough. Researchers noted that Ali's speaking rate slowed by 16% after this fight, indicating the severe neurological toll of absorbing Shavers' power. Shavers concluded that Ali had supernatural toughness. What made Ali's performance even more remarkable was the context of his career at that point. He had already endured the Thrilla in Manila 2 years earlier, a fight that nearly killed both him and Joe Frazier. His body was breaking down, his reflexes slowing, yet his will remained unshakable. Against Shavers, Ali wasn't relying on the physical gifts that made him great. He was relying on something deeper, something that couldn't be measured in the gym or analyzed on film. He was relying on the refusal to be broken. If Ali represented the toughness of the past generation, Larry Holmes represented the technical evolution of the heavyweight division. The relationship between Shavers and Holmes was complex. Holmes had served as a sparring partner for Shavers years before becoming champion. This familiarity bred a unique dynamic. Holmes knew exactly how hard Shavers hit, and Shavers knew Holmes had the skills to avoid him. They fought twice. The first fight in 1978 was a lopsided unanimous decision win for Holmes, a masterclass in boxing where Holmes kept Shavers at the end of his legendary jab. But the second fight in 1979 cemented Holmes as one of Shavers' toughest tests. Larry Holmes was defending his WBC heavyweight title at Caesars Palace on September 28, 1979. The fight followed a predictable pattern for the first 6 rounds. Holmes, the superior technician with perhaps the greatest jab in heavyweight history, picked Shavers apart. He used lateral movement, a stinging left hand, and rapid combinations to bloody the challenger. Shavers looked slow, telegraphing his punches, unable to navigate the distance Holmes commanded. It appeared Shavers was outclassed. Then came the 7th round. Holmes, perhaps growing too comfortable or momentarily lapsing in concentration, dropped his left hand slightly. Shavers uncorked an overhand right that connected flush with the champion's jaw. The impact was catastrophic. Holmes did not merely fall, he crashed. He was lifted off his feet and slammed backward onto the canvas, his head bouncing off the mat with sickening force. It is widely considered one of the most devastating single punches ever landed in a heavyweight title fight. The sound was picked up clearly by ringside microphones. Commentators and fans assumed the fight was over. Shavers celebrated, raising his arms, believing he had finally won the championship. What happened next defines Larry Holmes' toughness in Shavers' eyes. Holmes, whose eyes were initially glazed, seemingly unconscious, managed to rise. The neurological reset he underwent in those few seconds is a medical marvel. He got up at the count of 9. Shavers, sensing blood and the title within his grasp, moved in to finish the job. He threw everything he had left, wild hooks, uppercuts, desperate rights. But Holmes didn't just survive. He fought back. He held on, moved, and even fired back to keep Shavers off him. This ability to recover from near unconsciousness to functional combat readiness is a rare physiological trait. By the 8th round, the adrenaline dump from the failed knockout attempt had exhausted Shavers. Holmes, having survived the death blow, regained his composure. He resumed his surgical dismantling of Shavers, whose energy evaporated. Holmes's jab began to snap Shavers' head back repeatedly. In the 11th round, with Shavers defenseless and exhausted, the referee stopped the fight. Holmes retained his title. For Shavers, Holmes represented a different kind of toughness, technical durability. Unlike Ali, who absorbed punishment round after round, Holmes took the single hardest shot Shavers could deliver and resurrected himself. Shavers stated that Holmes had the best jab and was incredibly difficult to hit cleanly. The psychological blow of seeing a man get up from that punch broke Shavers' spirit in the fight. Shavers later joked that he knocked Holmes out, but he just didn't know it. Holmes later admitted that Shavers hit him harder than anyone, including Tyson. Holmes noted a distinct difference in the quality of the impact. When Tyson hit him, it was a flash, sharp, blinding speed. But when Shavers hit him, the impact vibrated through his bones. Holmes's quote about hearing saxophonist Jimmy Tillis while face down on the canvas has become boxing folklore. The 7th round knockdown became a defining moment, not just for Holmes, but for understanding the limits of human durability. Medical experts have since analyzed the footage, marveling at how Holmes managed to regain consciousness and functional awareness within seconds. The human brain, when subjected to such trauma, typically requires minutes or even hours to reset. Holmes did it in 9 seconds. This wasn't just toughness. This was biological anomaly combined with championship heart. While Ali and Holmes were champions who used skill and ring IQ to overcome Shavers, Ron Lyle was a mirror image of Shavers himself, a devastating puncher, a former convict, and a man of immense physical strength. The 1975 bout between Shavers and Lyle is remembered as one of the most violent brawls in heavyweight history. Lyle had survived a near-fatal stabbing in prison, where he was pronounced dead on the operating table twice, and learned to box while incarcerated. He possessed a toughness born of life-or-death struggle. Shavers described Lyle as being strong as an ox, a descriptor he used for few others. Lyle was 6'3" and 216 pounds of prison-forged muscle, and he brought a street fighter's mentality to the ring. Fighting in Lyle's home hometown of Denver at the Denver Coliseum on September 13, 1975. The atmosphere was electric. The fight was viewed as a loser-leaves-town match. Both men were top contenders, needing a win to stay in the title picture. From the opening bell, defense was abandoned. It was a collision of two offensive juggernauts. Shavers struck first. In the second round, he landed a left hook followed by a thunderous right hand that sent Lyle crashing to the canvas. It was the first time Lyle had ever been knocked down in his professional career. The toughness of Lyle was immediately apparent. He rose, hurt but angry. The knockdown seemed to wake him up rather than finish him. He snarled at Shavers, signaling the war had just begun. For the next few rounds, the two men traded heavy artillery. This was not the strategic holding of Ali or the jabbing of Holmes. This was two heavyweights standing in the pocket and trading bombs. Shavers rocked Lyle repeatedly. Lyle fired back with body shots and uppercuts that shook Shavers to his core. The description of the fight evokes the image of two heavy construction vehicles colliding repeatedly. By the sixth round, the frenetic pace had taken its toll on Shavers. His stamina issues, often his Achilles heel, began to manifest. Lyle, sensing the shift, unleashed a brutal flurry. He landed a right hand that froze Shavers, followed by a combination described by commentators as hammering nails into a rotten wall. Shavers collapsed to the canvas unconscious. Lyle had walked through the fire and burned the arsonist. Shavers often cites this fight not for its length, but for its intensity. Lyle was tough because he was willing to walk through the fire. He didn't try to outbox Shavers, he outslugged him. Shavers respected Lyle's raw strength and his refusal to be intimidated. To Shavers, Lyle was the one man who met him on his own terms, power for power, and won. Historically, this fight demonstrated that Shavers could be bullied if an opponent was strong enough and crazy enough to trade with him. It was a test of heart, and on that night, Lyle's heart and chin held up just slightly longer. Shavers later said Ron Lyle was the strongest man he ever fought, and that they went to war. The violence of these encounters forged a fraternity that lasted decades. Despite the brutal nature of their battles, Shavers maintained deep respect and friendship with all three men. He remained a lifelong admirer of Ali, visiting him and speaking fondly of his kindness. Shavers viewed Ali as a mentor figure in the sport. With Holmes, despite the crushing knockdown and knockout loss, they became close friends, often appearing together at autograph signings and events. They joked about the knockdown for years, with Holmes admitting he was unconscious before he hit the ground. Perhaps the deepest bond was with Lyle, two hard men from the wrong side of the tracks who found redemption in the ring. They worked together in later years, united by the shared trauma and glory of their Denver war. Lyle's death in 2011 was a significant blow to Shavers. These three men represented three distinct archetypes of toughness. Ali survived through shock absorption, relaxation, and an indomitable psychological will. Holmes survived through physiological recovery and technical neutralization. Lyle survived through offensive reciprocity, killing the other man before he kills you. When Shavers names a fighter as tough, he's testifying that they survived physical trauma that would have hospitalized an average person. The toughness Shavers describes is a measure of survival against an existential threat. It involves absorbing force vectors that threaten to separate consciousness from the body instantly. These three men proved that while a punch can break a bone, it takes a special kind of human spirit to refuse to be broken by the hardest puncher who ever lived. They didn't just win fights, they survived Earnie Shavers, and in doing so, they earned a place in boxing immortality. The legacy of Earnie Shavers is not defined by the men he knocked out, but by the giants who managed to stand back up. If these stories from boxing's greatest era fascinated you, let me know in the comments which fighter impressed you most. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the legends of the sport.